What does it say about me that my favorite books from the month of June are all about unhinged women? I mean, look around at the chaos and disaster that is my office right now. If you've watched some of my recent videos, you know that that makeshift bookshelf I have back there completely just crashed. It's not working for me. I've got a couple of bookshelves that I'm going to be getting. They're custom made, so they're taking a little while. So I apologize again for this state of chaos behind me. But again, I think that suits my life right now. It's hot. It's humid. I hate it here in South Alabama. I'm languishing, sweltering, and I am really connecting to some unhinged women. So, this is a June wrap up, and you're going to hear about a lot of different types of books, not just unhinged women. Those just happen to be my favorite. So, stay tuned for some hits, some misses. I definitely have some controversial views on a couple of new releases, and let's just get into it. I kicked off the month of June with two vlogs. So I will link both of those vlogs down in the description box below because I'm not going to go into all of my thoughts about those books here. But the first vlog that I did was a horror reader reads romance vlog. And for that vlog, I read Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver, Lizzie and Dante by Mary Bly, which I did not rate either one of those because I did not think that was fair. Since I am not a romance reader, I'm definitely not the target audience, but I definitely shared my thoughts about both of those books in the vlog. The third book that I read for the vlog was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which I ended up DNFing. And if you want to know more about why, then you can watch my Horror Reader Reads Romance vlog. So the next vlog I did was a Frankenstein inspired reading vlog. And for that vlog, I read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, which I ended up rating 4.5 stars. And the second book that I read for that vlog was A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock, which I ended up giving 4 stars. And I DNF'd one book for that vlog, and that was The Modern Prometheus, an existential body horror novel, and that is written by Jason Robert Ducharme. Oh boy, here we go. I have some controversial takes on three new releases that I read in June. Each of these was one of my most highly anticipated books for 2024. And I will say that I'm definitely in the minority with my feelings about these books. So, the first one that I want to talk about is Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman. So, I had not read from this author until May. And I did a Mallerman May reading vlog, which I will also link down in the description box below, because before I purchased Josh Mallerman's new release, I wanted to see if he was an author for me. And I rated all of his books that I read for my vlog 4 stars. So that made me extra excited to read Incidents Around the House. So maybe it's, a case of high expectations. Maybe I had too high expectations, but I don't think so. I don't get it. I don't get it. The back of this book is like filled with blurbs from horror authors and horror reviewers, just singing the praises of the unique style of this book, the scare factor. They're talking about jump scares. I didn't get I didn't get either one of those, to be honest. Let me start by giving you the synopsis for this book, and then I will talk about some of the specific issues that I had with it. So, here is the synopsis. To 8-year-old Bella, her family is her world. There's mommy, daddo, and grandma Ruth. But there is also other mommy, a malevolent entity who asks her every day, "Can I go inside your heart?" When horrifying incidents around the house signal that other mommy is growing tired of asking Bella the question over and over, Bella understands that unless she says yes, her family will soon pay. Other mommy is getting restless, stronger, bolder. Only the bonds of family can keep Bella safe, but cracks in her parents' marriage are starting to show. The safety Bella relies on is about to unravel, but other mommy needs an answer. Incidents Around the House is a chilling, wholly unique tale of true horror about a family as haunted as their home. Okay. First of all, it is entirely from Bella's perspective. So it's an 8-year-old child. And that's fine with me. I don't mind reading from a child's perspective. My issue here is that most of the time, Bella reads as much, much younger than 8 years old. I have 4 children, so I feel like I'm pretty adept at understanding the way that children think and speak, even, different at different levels, different types of, personalities. This child did not read as 8 to me. She read more like 4 or 5. So that took me out of the story a little bit. Another thing, and this is probably petty, but it really irritated the hell out of me that she called her father Dado instead of Daddy. I got so sick and tired of reading over and over again, Dado, Dado, Dado. It just got under my skin. Another thing is that this whole idea of other mommy was just, I don't know. It didn't scare me. I thought it was kind of silly at some points about continuously asking, can I go inside your heart? Um, it just, it just didn't hit for me. And also, another issue that I had was that it just seemed very repetitive. Something would happen. Belle and her parents would leave the house. They'd go stay somewhere else. The entity would follow them there. So, I will say, as far as something that I found to be unique, I'm going to give credit there, is that you don't continuously have the question throughout the novel of whether Bella is actually seeing other mommy or not, because other people do see this entity, whatever other mommy may turn out to be. I don't want to get spoilery here, but there's also a layer of metaphor for family secrets and family trauma and things being like a gothic kind of sense of the past coming to haunt the present. So that, was part of the whole point of Other Mommy. But I have seen that kind of story done before and done much better. And I just ended up giving this one 2 stars. I definitely know I'm in the minority here. If you've read Incidents Around the House, I'd love to know what you thought of it. And just let me know down in the comments below. And the next book I want to talk about is Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I'm going to start this review by giving you the synopsis of a horror movie. In June 1993, a group of young guerrilla filmmakers spent 4 weeks making Horror Movie, a notorious, disturbing art house horror flick. The weird part, only 3 of the film's scenes were ever released to the public, but Horror Movie has nevertheless grown a rabid fan base. 3 decades later, Hollywood is pushing for a big budget reboot. The man who played the thin kid is the only surviving cast member. He remembers all too well the secrets buried within the original screenplay, the bizarre events of the filming, and the dangerous cross lines on set that resulted in tragedy. As memories flood back in, the boundaries between reality and film, past and present, start to blur. But he's going to help remake the film, even if it means navigating a world of cynical producers, egomaniacal directors, and surreal fan conventions. Demons of the past be damned. But at what cost. Horror movie is an obsessive, psychologically chilling, and suspenseful twist on the cursed film that breathlessly builds to an unforgettable, mind bending conclusion. Okay, so first of all, I just have not enjoyed Paul Tremblay's last two books. I did like um horror movie a little bit better than the Paul Bearers Club because I ended up rating the Paul Bearers Club only 2 stars. Whereas I mentioned before, I did give horror movie 2.5 stars, but I rounded it down to 2 on Goodreads. But I just feel like it was a kind of a therapy type book, maybe for Paul Tremblay. I don't know, kind of dealing with the experiences that he had whenever his book, which is one of the books that I like by him a lot, The Cabin at the End of the World, was turned into a movie, Knock at the Cabin by M. Night Shyamalan. So I feel like he was processing a lot of the issues and experiences that he had with his novel being turned into a movie. I also feel like there's a lot of Paul Tremblay himself in the character of the thin kid, much like there was with Art Barbara in the Paul Bearers Club. It was meta, but to some degree, it was kind of just very pretentious in a lot of ways. And disclaimer here, I was describing this book to my oldest child as being just pretentious. And she looked at me kind of funny. And I'm like, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. It was pretentious even for me because I sometimes might enjoy some pretentious movies and books, but that's beside the point. There was also just this direct address to the reader slash movie viewer sometimes, like, you feel this way, you do this, you see this. There was also a section, or maybe even a couple of sections, about some people watch horror movies and feel this way, and some people watch them and feel this way. And there was an actual part that went on forever in the audiobook. And I was listening to somebody who read the physical copy of this, and I believe she said that this section went on for like 5 to 7 pages in the print version of horror movie. But it's just this still of a movie that someone is watching, like the audience. It's like in the theater, and it's talking about how you have just this kind of still shot, and it lingers for like 4 to 5 minutes. And that part of the book is like, some people get bored. Some people start walking out of the theater. Some people get even more scared because of the uncanniness of this still shot. And I'm probably not explaining this book very well, but I was just bored by a lot of it. And there are twists that come out that I can certainly see why people, would be shocked and like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. The ending, I can definitely see why some people find it disturbing and shocking, but I was just bored by it. I couldn't get into it. It just felt like Paul Tremblay trying to be like, look what I can do. I can be so meta. I can be so philosophical, and it was just not for me at all. So again, controversial view. I want to hear down below, because some of you have said that this is your favorite Paul Tremblay book ever. And I miss his old stuff. I miss The Cabin at the End of the World, A Head Full of Ghosts. I liked Survivor Song a lot. And I really liked The Disappearance at Devil's Rock. But I just did not like the Paul Bearers Club, and I didn't like horror movie either. So let me know your thoughts. Be nice. The next book I want to talk about is The Day of the Door by Laurel Hightower. I read Crossroads by this author a couple of years ago, and I absolutely loved it. It was such a gut-wrenching tale of grief and what a mother will do for her son. And I was looking forward to something kind of similar with The Day of the Door. And this is why. Here's the synopsis. Once there were four Lasco siblings banded together against a world that failed to protect them. But on a hellish night that marked the end of their childhood, eldest brother Sean died violently after being dragged behind closed doors. Though the official finding was accidental death, Nathan Lasco knows better and has never forgiven their mother, Stella. Now, 2 decades later, Stella promises to finally reveal the truth of what happened on the day of the door. Accompanied by a paranormal investigative team, the Lasco family comes together one final time, but no one is prepared for the revelations waiting for them on the third floor. So, again, you have family dynamics, you have grief, you have loss, you have trauma. So I was really looking forward to seeing something from Laura Hightower that was a novel instead of a novella like Crossroads, because I was looking forward to, being able to get more in depth with some of these themes. But this one honestly just felt very flat to me. I felt like the characters were very one dimensional. I felt like some of the scenes were just, I don't know, I'm trying to explain some of this. I just felt like there wasn't a lot of nuance. Like it was just very much telling versus showing. And just to give you one example of this, let me read a quote from the book. Her dead eyed stare fixed on his face for several uncomfortable seconds before she remembered to slide her human mask back in place. And it just felt to me, like I said, that this was just very surface. And I was looking for some more in depth kind of layering like there was in Crossroads. So this one just didn't meet my expectations at all, unfortunately. Now, let's move on to some happier books for me anyway. These are all either 4, 4.5, or 5-star books. So I kind of see that I went from very low ratings all the way up to high. Nothing really hit midway for me this month. I either seem to love or hate what I read. So let me start with a 4-star book, and that is An Excellent Host by Chelsea G. Summers. Her book, A Certain Hunger, has been one of my favorite books of 2024. So I was really excited to pick up this one. And I do have a signed copy. So this book follows 6 women who are very similar to the Maenads in Greek mythology. If you don't know what a Maenad is, they are the followers of Dionysus, who is the god of wine and revelry. However, the Maenads also, once they get into a frenzy, what is sometimes referred to as a bacchanalia, because of Bacchus being the Roman equivalent for Dionysus. Um, these women get worked into frenzies when they consume too much wine. And in Greek mythology, they literally rip men to shreds. So this is following 6 modern women who adhere to that Dionysian kind of worship. Um, and there is a man who is dating one of these women. The man's name is Shad. I mean, first of all, what kind of name is Shad? He deserves whatever happens to him. So that's really all I want to say about this, because it is so short. It's only like 50 something pages, I think. Let me see. Yeah, 51 pages. But if you want to follow a story about Shad and 6 women who worship Dionysus and get worked into a frenzy, then I definitely recommend An Excellent Host to you. There's also some tie-ins to Taylor Swift. So if you're a Swiftie like me, then I think you'll like this book also. The next book that I want to talk about is Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. I felt like this book was my Bible. Let me give you the synopsis. An ambitious mother puts her art career on hold to stay at home with her newborn son, but the experience does not match her imagination. 2 years later, she steps into the bathroom for a break from her toddler's demands, only to discover a dense patch of hair on the back of her neck. In the mirror, her canines suddenly look sharper. Her husband, who travels for work 5 days a week, casually dismisses her fears from faraway hotel rooms. As the mother's symptoms intensify, her temptation to give in to her new dog impulses peaks, and she struggles to keep her alter canine identity a secret. Seeking a cure at the library, she discovers a mysterious academic tome that becomes her Bible, a field guide to magical women, a mythical ethnography, and meets a group of mommies involved in a multi-level marketing scheme who may also be more than what they seem. An outrageously original novel of ideas about art, power, and womanhood wrapped in a satirical fairy tale. Rachel Yoder's Night Bitch will make you want to howl in laughter and recognition. This book hit me on so many levels. It made me cry a few times. Without giving too much personal information, I do stay at home with my daughter, who is 16, and she does attend a specialized school, but she has some significant disabilities and delays, and I often feel very isolated because of that. And so the whole idea of being at home and not being able to pursue everything career wise that I would like to, I felt very much a kinship with the mother in this book. And a few of I tabbed, as you can tell, and took a lot of notes here. I'm going to say a little bit about it now, but I'm also working on a project diving into the concepts presented in this book. So I don't want to talk as much about it now for that reason. But one of the quotes that stood out to me is this one: "You light a fire early in your girlhood. You stoke it and tend it. You protect it at all cost. You don't let it rage into a mountain of light, because that's not becoming of a girl. You keep it secret. You let it burn. You look into the eyes of other girls and see their fires flickering there. Offer conspiratorial nods. Never speak aloud of a near unbearable heat, a growing conflagration." And that really hit me, this whole idea of having to feel like you can't really embrace all of your feelings, and you can't really be who you are. And a lot of that too is tied to my fundamentalist upbringing, which is not something I've talked about a lot on this channel, but it is something that I'm going to be addressing, as I said, in some upcoming videos. Another thing that I took note on, that I first want to preface by saying I love my husband very much. He loves me. He's a wonderful husband, father, and worker. He is excellent at his job. He's a nurse, and I very much appreciate him. But at the same time, this next passage, it really resonated with me. He had a job. He made money. He was off on his work trips. Goodbye and I love you, and kisses with a brisk wave of the hand and twinkle of the eye. She stood with the babe in arms and watched him back the car from the driveway. Her undergraduate degree was from a prestigious university, better than the one he had attended. She held 2 master's degrees, whereas he held none. She also held a baby. It shouldn't have been a contest, and it wasn't, was it? No, definitely not. She would never think of her husband in such competitive terms, but she did fault herself for choosing such an impractical field as studio art or literature. What a nut she had been, this mother. She was just a lady who liked art or books. And that was no way to make a career or make money, no matter how much you liked art or literature, no matter how talented you might be at making it. So that's just a little bit of why I resonated so deeply with the main character in Night Bitch. But I also really loved the kind of fairy tale, dream-like sequences where she really does embrace this idea of becoming a dog. Like I said, I don't want to say as much about it now, of course, because I will be saying a lot more about it later. But I do want to say that the reason I gave this book 4.5 stars is for one particular scene of animal cruelty. And there are some animal harm scenes in different places in the book, which to some degree I could kind of understand. But there was just one part that really I felt like was a bit too far. So that's all I'm going to say about Night Bitch for now. And finally, we have my last 2 books, which are both 5 stars. So the first book I want to talk about is My Husband by Maud Ventura. And I know this book would not be for everyone. The main character is not exactly someone that you love. She's very unlikable. She's very unhinged. But she is obsessed with her husband. And all she's talking about pretty much is my husband this, my husband that. And she doesn't know if her husband really loves her the way that she thinks he should love her. And he kind of is, I don't know. Like I said, this was very hard to explain, but every little thing that her husband does or doesn't do, she reads that as kind of, a determining factor of whether or not he really loves her. So, for example, he likes to have total darkness when he sleeps, and she would like to have a little bit of light coming through. And then at some point, she lets in a little bit of light while he's still asleep, and he keeps sleeping. So then she's wondering, does he really need total darkness? Because he was sleeping through it when I had the windows open and light shining through. So does that mean that he, doesn't care about my feelings at all because he knows I'd like a little bit of light? Um, Anytime he doesn't say the things that she thinks he needs to say, she's like, okay, does that mean that he really doesn't love me? And I'm just trying to think. There's just so many instances of her gauging the level of her husband's love by seemingly insignificant things that he either does or doesn't do. They do have children, but the children are very unimportant in a lot of ways to the book, because they're in a lot of ways not that important to our main character. The kind of big instigating factor is that she and her husband are at this dinner party with another couple. And for some reason, they're like playing a game where you compare someone to fruit. And her husband compares her to a clementine. And that sends her into a deep spiral of thinking that he doesn't really love her because he compared her to a clementine instead of some other kind of more exotic fruit. And if this sounds completely crazy, that's because it is. But I just loved it. I described it as, a book that made me want to just lounge around all day, eating cheese, drinking wine, and listening to the drama unfold. Because as I mentioned, I did listen to this on audio. And there is a twist at the end. And I was like, oh shit, wow. That's really all I want to say about this one because it's very short, but I just absolutely loved it. What can I say? That was great. The last book I want to talk about is Deliver Me by Elle Nash, which of course I gave 5 stars. But I want to open up this review with content and trigger warnings. Torture, emotional abuse, domestic abuse, murder, animal cruelty, animal death, child abuse, child neglect, pregnancy, loss. This one is a very bleak, very gritty book. It is very much in the style of a Southern Gothic. So we're following the main character, Dee Dee, who has lost a few pregnancies and she is absolutely desperate to become a mother. It's set in the Ozarks of Missouri, and Dee Dee works at a meat packing facility where she helps to process chickens. Those descriptions can be very disturbing and gross. So she is already kind of in this very disgusting work environment every day. She lives with a man who has an insect fetish. So, you know, that's a part of it too. He's also very emotionally, really kind of unavailable to her. And she has suffered several pregnancy losses, and she is absolutely desperate to become a mother. This also isn't helped by her own mother, who continually pressures Dee Dee with this idea of getting married and having children. Dee Dee's mother is a fundamentalist Christian, and Dee Dee grew up in that. So, this title, Deliver Me, has a few different kinds of meanings pertaining to the events of the story. Now, growing up, Dee Dee had a best friend named Sloan, and Sloan was kind of everything Dee Dee wasn't, but wanted to be. Dee Dee's not what you would consider your typically, standard idea of beauty, whereas Sloan is. Dee Dee is kind of simultaneously um, in love with Sloan and also wanting to be Sloan. Um, as it turns out, Sloan ends up in present day moving into the apartment above Dee Dee's, and they kind of rekindle their friendship, but all of Dee Dee's longings are still present, only made worse by the fact that Sloan has a child, which is something Dee Dee has, as we mentioned, or I mentioned, aspired to and doesn't have yet. And this just really follows a very disturbing and bleak plot. And the end is shocking. I saw it coming to some degree, but not exactly to the level that it goes. But again, like I said, I really, really loved this book. Not an easy read, but one that I really enjoyed is not really the right word, but felt very compelled to continue with. So that is my June wrap up. Let me know down below. Have you read any of these books? Have I convinced you to read or maybe not read some of these books? I want to know what you thought if you have read some of these books, and let me know what your favorite read from June was. Thank you again for watching, and I would appreciate it if you would like this video and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.